Powderfinger was don't panic.
Good advice.
Don't panic, everything will work out. We'll be fine. Trevor will get it. No.
And if it doesn't, then you cry like a baby.
That's right, exactly. There you go. See, we've got it all worked out, playing great songs. So, it's now 7:30 a.m. on Hepburn Community Radio, the voice of the locals, and we've got Mr. Timothy in the studio. Good morning, Tim.
Hello, everybody.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Nice
Lovely
to
morning
see you
out
again.
there. And we've also got a
beautiful
camera
morning out
person
there.
in the studio. We're getting really upmarket here in Hepburn
I
Community
managed to
Radio.
drag her out of bed this morning.
Yeah, we have our own camera person here in the studio filming for us. Fantastic stuff. So what's happening, Timothy?
Oh, it's been a very interesting week. Sustainability Victoria and a lot of community groups have been celebrating renewable energy this last couple of weeks. There's a couple of events on. There's one coming up at Wood End, looking at how people can modify their houses to make them more energy efficient,
Right.
what they can do if they're building a new house. And just recently we had an event out at Dalesford's own Hepburn Wind Farm
Yes.
out on Leonard's Hill. We had a fantastic guest speaker out there, Søren Hermansen rather. He's from Denmark.
Okay.
You would say a little island, but it's actually quite big. It's Samsø Island in Denmark. It's the world's first community that was 100% renewable energy powered.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we've got 2 turbines. We're doing really well. Although I did hear this morning there was something in the pipeline about a 149 turbine proposal before a council. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere around this area. And a quarry as well to help build the turbines or something.
I haven't heard that one myself, but the turbines are becoming a much bigger financial proposition these days.
Right,
So state governments have kind of loosened the regulations
Right.
and made it easier for investors to get involved and put the big farms up.
So do you think the federal government will do the same? No comment.
That was an interesting facial expression.
That's what it was, very.
Oh, but we're all getting into it's clean coal future.
That's right, a clean coal future. I like that. That was a really good story. Very well said. Clean coal future.
Yeah, and as soon as you look at the numbers on it and you think, why would we actually go with that? It's going to be more expensive than renewable energy, and just because we pump the emissions deep underground somewhere doesn't make it clean.
Exactly. Just leave them deep underground until one day they all go foof and explode out again.
How do they go?
Foof. They foof back out of the ground.
Yeah. But yeah, we had a great day out at the wind farm on Sunday. So they had a live band there, and they had the very nice ice cream come over from Castlemaine. And,
this is the ice cream that you've had before.
Yes.
That you had one day over there when you had lunch over.
Yes, it is. And during the week before the event, I installed some power points on the actual turbine itself, so they were actually able to run their coffee van and their ice cream van from the actual turbine.
Wow.
There you go, renewables.
I commented to Hepburn Wind. I said, at last we've got a practical application of wind power.
Exactly. Make your own coffee, yeah. And there was about 250 people turned up, I think Dr. Ross said.
Yeah, it was quite a big event.
Quite a big
it was
event,
a really good turnout, and it was a really good crowd. I think everybody there is behind renewable energy.
Yep.
But the bigger part of that is everybody's looking at community energy. So it's one thing. It's great to say to the big companies, please come and build something in our area.
Yep.
But it's an even better thing when people get together and they decide, no, let's build it ourselves, own it ourselves, run it, and get the benefits of it in our community.
That's right.
And get energy independence, I suppose.
Yeah. And those 2 turbines produce enough energy for Dalesford and Hepburn?
Close, not quite.
Yeah, not quite.
They produce enough energy for all the households in Dalesford and Hepburn. But the commercial and industrial, there's a little bit of a shortfall there.
Okay.
But the next step is Hepburn Wind are looking at putting a solar array out on that same hill.
Okay.
So as well as the wind turbines, they'll also have solar power there.
Right. Fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Good stuff. And so this gentleman talked about where he comes from with the
Yeah, he
complete
talked about
renewable.
where he came from, which was Samsø Island, and if anybody Googles that, they'll find lots of information and articles written about that.
Right.
But the big thing he spoke about was how important it was for communities to take ownership of what they were doing and to get everybody involved. And the big thing he stressed, we had a session with Søren on Saturday, the day before the event out at the wind farm.
Right.
And the big thing he stressed was getting the original inhabitants of an area on board with the project.
Yes.
Because he said Samsø Island was very similar to Daylesford and Hepburn, that you have your native population and you also have a lot of people move up from the city. They've got new ideas
Right.
and different ways of looking at things. And he said dealing with those people, those new people into the area was really easy. They're always going to get on board with new projects.
Yeah,
They're
that's
going to
right,
be
yes.
a bit more a broader view of things. Whereas he said that quite often the natives in an area were a little bit set in their ways and a bit harder to swing.
Yeah.
And
Because they haven't dealt with that sort of technology before, and it's all new and different to them.
well, it's also people get stuck in an old paradigm.
Yeah.
Like they get used to things and they're comfortable with it.
So to bring something new into the mix sometimes takes a bit of getting their heads around.
Like to communicate to people how they will benefit from something is what sometimes is the hard part.
Yeah, because it takes a long time to get their heads around the fact that this is new and this is exciting, but it could also provide this and this. But hang on, we've done this for years and it's always worked, so why should we change to something
that's
new?
Right, yeah. And Denmark being the climate they are, and being that they have no real natural resources buried in their own ground, like they don't have massive coal deposits, they don't have massive gas deposits or oil deposits around
around that area.
Country.
Yeah.
For a long time they were buying all their energy from overseas, so they were importing coal, they were importing oil. So coal in the power stations, everybody had oil burning heaters in their homes to make heat because it gets pretty cold.
Yes.
And when they had the oil embargoes back in the 70s and 80s, that pushed the price of crude oil through the roof, and Denmark as a country and as a government realised we are far too open to market forces with our energy, so we really need to take control of it and to become independent. And even back in the 80s they knew that renewable energy was an option.
So that was coming to be renewable energy would be the way to go.
Yeah, well they just had a much longer term vision, even just from the point of view of saving themselves a lot of money in the long run by not needing to buy these expensive fossil fuels.
Yep.
And luckily enough, Denmark had a government that instituted policy which really encouraged renewable energy, but also community energy. Like the Samsø Island project, the majority of the funding for that came straight out of the
community.
federal government of Denmark.
Oh, okay. Oh, right.
I did a little search, as you suggested, and according to the internet, it says that in 1997, Samsø won a government competition to become a model renewable energy community.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now, is this wind power or is it solar panels? Or a
They
mixture of
use
all?
a combination of things.
Right.
They use a lot of wind. They got about 11 turbines on their island.
Right.
They also do solar.
Okay.
At the Samsø Institute, so they actually got so good at it, they set up a learning facility where people from all over the world can come and they can learn from their example and get hints and tips about how to deal with the...
Because they've done all the hard yards,
challenges.
obviously, to get it all up and running.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And not only that, the government of Denmark, they also instituted a policy that say I'm a large company and I come in and I want to build 10 turbines in an area, they say that's fine, but you must offer minimum 20% of that project to community ownership. So by law, if we're going to spend billions of dollars and build this massive project, the local community in that area has
Have to
to
be
have
part
the
of it.
option of buying into at least 20% of that project.
Right.
Okay.
So
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
people
it
own
is. That's a
shares
really
and they
good
earn
incentive.
something.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And as well as just electricity generation, they've also looked at heating as well. They have, through the island in most of the population centres there, they have a hot water pipe which runs past all the houses.
Right.
So it's like an inch diameter pipe with about 3 or 4 inches of insulation over the top of it.
Yeah.
And each house they have radiators in them. So by turning up and down a tap,
Right.
they can use heat. And this all comes back to a central boiler. And the boiler, although they're combusting material in there to generate the heat, all the materials they combust are basically the agricultural waste products
Oh,
from
brilliant.
the island.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're turning what a lot of the time would just be buried or
Just
well, what was just rubbish. They're turning that into energy
Okay.
to heat their homes.
So they obviously don't have the same sort of homes we have here, like where we just go overboard with great big houses that need a lot of heating and cooling because they are such, and not very well insulated. They have different
That's
sort of
right.
houses, yeah.
I mean, Denmark has a much bigger range of temperatures. Like it gets much colder
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
So the homes are a little bit smaller, but the walls are much thicker. As part of their project, a lot of the homes were retrofitted, so double glazing went in, the insulation quality of the buildings went up, and so it was I guess the term would be holistic. Was the approach they took. So not only looking at how they generate their energy, but
But how
how
people
they
use
how
it.
they use it,
Yeah,
how they
yeah.
can use less of it, how they can make the energy do more than one job at the same time. Like I've spoken in the past about heat pump hot water services, and in Denmark they use a lot of heat pump technology as well. So they're not always running boilers to
Yeah.
heat their homes. They're
Yeah.
also, when they can, they're using heat pumps
Okay.
to pull the ambient heat from outside.
Yeah. So these are these new hot water services with the pump on top of the
Yeah,
hot water service.
they're like a reverse
Yeah.
cycle air conditioner.
Yeah. I'm still amazed at the amount of new houses that are being built as you travel down on the train towards Melbourne. That there's still no solar panels on roofs of houses. It's. I thought it would have,
Well, it's part of the building code that there's minimum requirements they have to meet for energy efficiency, and sometimes people are given a choice. You can either have rainwater tanks or you can have solar panels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they go for the rainwater tanks.
Rainwater tanks are usually probably the cheaper option for people.
Yeah.
In Denmark, they updated all their building codes, so most new houses now are built with solar panels. They're all
Yeah.
built with high insulation ratings, double glazed windows, that sort of thing.
So we need to start at that point before we start thinking about the rest of it, don't we? We need to get
Yeah,
our
that's
housing. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to think about your energy from both ends, like how you make it and also how you use it.
Yeah.
So
And how people invest in it, and that's what happened with the Hepburn Winds
yes,
turbines. Of
that's
course,
right.
that's local community owned. There was enough
Exactly
people in
right.
the area who had the forethought to actually invest money into that particular resource, and that's proved to be really, really good.
Yeah, and it all starts with just a handful of passionate people, or
Yes.
as Sørensen said, a handful of crazy people. But once you get
Have you got any questions you want to ask, Matt? Trevor's just sitting in the corner.
once you get a few people on board that have got that vision, then you get the snowball effect, and it just builds and builds, picks up its own momentum.
Yeah.
And Hepburn Winds were talking about their experiences when they first got the project underway, and even they had a lot of trouble. Like when they were raising the funds to start the project, they were thinking it was going to take them about 6 weeks, and it ended up taking them close to 18 months.
Okay.
And they reached a point where they asked themselves, are we going to go ahead with this, or are we just going to give all
Give
the
it a miss.
investors their money back?
Yes.
So what they did was they gave the investors the opportunity of withdrawing.
Right.
And I think at that stage they had about 600,000 in the account to start. and only about 2,000 of that investment withdrew.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
luckily, the people who were investing, they had a long-term vision as well,
Yeah.
so they stuck with it, and now the
They
project
powered
is
on.
quite
Okay, powered on.
quite successful, and it's known all over the world now.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
amazing, isn't it? All right. It's 7:45 a.m. on Hepburn Community Radio, so I think we might take a break and play a song
All right then.
and put the kettle on.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
You are, not me.
Oh, no, I thought it was
I
Trevor.
take my milk with one sugar.
I'm still alive. Behave.
Oh.
But yeah, it's really
Interesting, yeah.
It's
I
really
wish I'd have made it
nice
now.
day out there. Even the band they had there, they're like I can't remember the name. It was like a jazz trio.
Oh, okay.
They did some covers, and they had a trailer with batteries and solar panels on it. So all
did
their
they?
PA.
It was all renewable energy.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
So
There's
the
a camera.
entire day. Like, before I put the power plants in on the turbine,
So you're bringing the
each time I had
camera?
the vent out there, they had to get
Thank you.
generators on site.
That's right, yeah. It's amazing, isn't it?
So it's a little bit,
Must be fun.
it doesn't look so
Sort of
good.
like,
You've got
yeah,
this
yeah, that's right.
huge turbine
Yeah.
spinning away, and then they've got a generator to run their coffee.
They still blow me
Ice
away
cream
every time I
vans.
drive past them. They're just so amazing. So
Oh,
so
yeah.
white and so magnificent and just humongously large. Yes, please.
In Denmark, they've got a lot of offshore wind turbines.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And they're actually starting to replace their turbines now
Okay.
with ones that are bigger, more output.
Yes, please.
So
And
that,
you want tea?
yes, please, thank you.
And do you want Earl Grey or ordinary?
Oh, that would be nice.
Earl Grey? Earl Grey or ordinary? Earl Grey, please.
But it's amazing how big they get.
Got more
now.
cups out there?
The ones out at Lennox Hill, they've got the ones they're putting up nowadays are twice the height.
Really?
The blades are twice the size.
And
And
the
the
way,
output's like 2.5 times as much.
yeah, the way they just turn so slowly, it just looks so
Like, it looks
amazing.
slow. And when
I know, that's right, yeah.
So and the tip of the blade passes above you.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
they're
faster.
moving so fast.
I just think they're incredible.
When we come back, I'll tell you about. Søren, he had people from Japan over looking at the project, and they asked what about all the dead birds, and he said, well, you walk 200 metres around the towers, and if you can find any dead birds, I'll buy you dinner and the beer. And he said, you've never seen so many Japanese looking for birds in your life.
Running around looking
Yeah.
for dead
Now,
birds.
the sugar's in the big.
Sugar has a big.
Sugar's
What,
in
you
the
need
big
sugar?
one for me, please.
Oh, really? You're not sweet enough?
No,
I didn't know that.
that's all I'll do.
That one's yours, the big giant one.
Yeah.
So we'll be back on
Have
I
you-
know,
do you have
I'll
milk
play
and
another song and just
sugar?
time.
So it's about
Yes.
2-3 minutes,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know if we've got, yeah, hopefully we've got milk. Milk and sugar for you?
Or if you've got milk.
Yeah, if, okay.
Do you want to say hi to your live podcast?
Oh, hello.
Just one?
And on Sunday, they were taking people into the turbines.
Yeah, that's what I wish I'd have been there for.
So some of the kids are impressed the hell out of them.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
They got what? Tesla?
Yeah,
Tesla car?
Energy Shop, they had a Model S Tesla on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Two of my friends have just picked one of those up.
Yeah.
This red one.
Oh.
Wow, jealous.
Yeah, same.
Would you like to tell your audience when we come back what topic you're going to talk about next? next Tuesday?
Probably a little bit more about Denmark, and then maybe the partnership that Power Shop have with Hepburn Winds.
Okay. So one more song and
Yep.
we will be back live again.
We will be.
Oh, wow.
Nice. Awesome.
So that's the one they bought.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
God.
And there's another picture of them. Oh, you're filling it up in halfway to.
Nice house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very happy with it.
Yeah, one of my clients in Spring Hill, he's got one as well.
Okay.
Installed the charger at his house for him.
Awesome.
I actually, yesterday,
It was disappointing. The charger was only like that by that. It was a minuscule thing.
yesterday in the main street, I saw someone actually plug their car
you
into it.
mentioned that you saw someone using the charge points in the
Fantastic,
main
I love
street.
it. Yeah? Because
You
most of
should,
the,
you should see how much people
Most
on
of-
Grapevine actually
yeah.
gives
most
like,
of the
really,
bloody,
it's not
oh
like
Jesus, I
anymore.
didn't realise this song went for 16 minutes, good God.
What? Really?
Yeah, sorry,
No.
we'll have to wind that down. Yeah, it's 7:50,
Who is that?
yeah. Bob Dylan.
No,
I
that
didn't even
explains
look
the
at it this
horrible
morning.
voice.
Now, we had to cut that song short. I need a cup of tea so badly. I put it in the playlist this morning and didn't even look, but it goes for 16 minutes. I don't know. Got 16 minutes to spend listening to Mr. Bob Dylan this morning.
Yeah. I mean,
We've
it's
got,
good,
we've got
but, you know.
Timothy here instead, and it's much more important to talk about renewable energy and stuff. Yes.
You need to do some
So,
exercises for your tongue.
right, exactly, yeah. Stop talking so much. Oh, Helen's trying to tell me to stop talking so much.
No.
All right, Timothy, we'll hand back over to you.
Okay, well, again, on Sunday out at the wind farm, Søren Hermansen from Denmark. Probably with wind farms, probably one thing a lot of people have heard about is some people say that the noise that comes off the wind turbines makes people physically sick.
Yes.
It turns the cows into vampires, and
The dog lays
and
eggs.
I hadn't heard that
and
actually.
it's a giant slicer and dicer of bird life.
Yes.
Um,
And what do you say to this,
um,
Timothy?
well, it's just not happening.
It's not happening.
Soren raised the point during his talk out at the wind farm, and he was entertaining a group of Japanese researchers there who were coming out to look at the wind farms, and one of them actually mentioned about the birds, and he said, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard this, that because of the speed that the blades turn at, that the birds seem unaware of them and happen to be caught off guard by them.
Right.
And he made them a deal. He said that if they can walk around any of the wind turbines on their island, 200-metre radius around each wind turbine, he said if they can find a single dead bird on the ground that was hit by the blades, he would buy them dinner and the beer.
Oh. That was
And
worth
he
going
said
for a hunt.
He said he's never seen so many Japanese people out looking for birds, and but he's also never seen them so disappointed because they weren't able to find
They couldn't
any.
find one.
Birds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that whole story when it came out was just sort of blown out of all proportion.
Yes.
And people just naturally, because the news said it or because they heard it on, the radio or the TV, it had to be true. But they didn't
That's
stop
right.
and think about the fact that, hang on a minute, it's not as though you wouldn't be able to see the wind turbines. If those birds can be, X amount of
Yeah.
up in the air and see a mouse running through long grass, they're not going to
Oh,
miss
that's
something
right.
as big as a turbine.
And the other thing about birds, is they perceive the world in a much more heightened sense than we do.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they feel air currents, they know what noises mean, and they can. And without a map and without GPS, they can navigate themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
anywhere.
Yes. they're
So
very
to
clever
think
at that.
that they would be somehow unable to perceive solid objects moving
Yeah.
through the air, I think is questionable.
Because they know where the thermals are, so that they can glide. They know how to do all that sort of stuff. So it's not really viable if they would run into a wind turbine.
Yeah.
No.
And wind turbines do make noise.
Yeah.
Whenever anything moves through the air, it makes noise. So it's impossible to say that anything is going to be silent when it's operating.
Yes.
But certainly the band didn't have any problem playing over the noise of the wind turbines out at the farm on Sunday.
Right.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
They probably didn't need to.
and as per the other thing, some people saying that it causes a physical sickness.
Yes.
They have done the double-blind tests, and then they've looked at the past of the people who are claiming the illness, and in each case, the people that were sick were the ones who did not want the project to go ahead. And even Hepburn Winds, they spoke about they had a few people take them to VCAT over the wind farm, and VCAT upheld their application and they built the wind farm. The only stipulation was that the sitting member said you have to offer tree planting to properties around the wind farm to screen out the visual aspect of the farm.
Oh, that seems reasonable.
And I think they said there was about 20 households involved, and only about 3 actually took them up on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
And
I actually don't mind the look of the turbines. I think they look kind of quite
Majestic.
you know, they're
well,
sort
kind of serene is the word.
yeah,
I would
peaceful
use.
and, you know,
But
calming.
the good thing that came out of VCAT and the tree planting was that because members of the Hepburn Wind, they went and did the tree planting themselves. They didn't just hire a gardener to go and do it. So they actually went and they were out there in t-shirts and digging holes and planting trees for these people, but at the same time they were actually able to speak to these people, and in all cases they actually turned these people right around because people spoke to them about the fears they had and what they had heard, and Hepburn Wind were able to say, but these things have never happened.
There is no physical proof that these things have happened. And
every time they try to find the study, and I mean, people will argue, oh, but the studies were done by people with vested interests and things like that. But many of the studies have been done by universities, which are just looking for answers. They're looking for results, and the results just haven't been there.
No. And, you know, to be fair, I think it's important that people who are concerned that, you know, their fears are managed, you know, that we don't just say, oh, don't ignore you, you're just making a fuss for no good reason. They need to understand, and people need to explain, you know, what the reality is and reassure them.
And like you said, that when they actually did talk to the people who were really, really concerned, they turned most of them around because they actually did allay those fears to the people.
Oh, that's right. And it's the same with any kind of public infrastructure and any kind of big projects. Like, people will have their reservations and their fears, or they've heard things. In a lot of cases, people tend to allow that to run away with them, so they'll just be in opposition. And
yes, you can.
But once people actually then sit down and talk, fears can be allayed, misinformation can be dispelled, and people can have a much better relationship with a project.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And everybody in a community should be thinking that way. They should think, okay, well, I've heard this, I've heard that. I'm going to speak to everybody involved and find out what the actual truth is, and give it a chance.
Exactly.
But once people get something in their mind that they've heard X, and if they have sort of nothing else to occupy them, that's all that goes through their mind, and then it gets worse and the fear gets bigger, and everything grows to a point where, you know, I just don't want this to happen because of blah blah blah. But if they actually stop and think about it, that what they're so afraid of is possibly not going to ever happen.
Well, and that's right. And the other strange thing was Hepburn Winds spoke about when they had their groundbreaking ceremony for the project. There was a big crowd of protesters at the front gate.
Oh.
And it turned out that all but 2 of them were bussed in.
Yeah, bussed in for that.
None of them actually lived in the community.
Two people.
That's right.
Protesters
kind
for
of like
hire.
Professional protesters.
Dear.
That's interesting.
Pretty amazing stuff,
But,
so the people, when it first, I remember when it first happened, when they had that groundbreaking ceremony, the people who'd been whinging up until that point, I know 3 of them particularly who went away for that weekend. So they didn't want to be here to protest, but they just went out of town for the weekend. And I was like, So the protests were really amazing,
Yeah, it was amazing that they just managed to find some random people and bust them in.
Now on Sunday there was a group of people who came from Melbourne on a bus. Is that right?
Well, as part of the renewable energy promotions that were happening in Victoria, they had free bus services from Southern Cross Station.
Okay.
So people could all get together and and carpool in a really good way.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
great
right.
too for the planet.
All
as
right, we're
well.
going to take a break again because Artie's here with the news.
Oh, already. Goodness.
He got back quickly.
Oh.
President says he hopes the government can turn around its fortunes over the next 12 months as he prepares to resign as government whip. Two polls
gonna
released
talk
this
about the
week
cool
give
stuff
Labour a
like the-
solid lead
the
over the
Teslas
coalition as
and
Malcolm
the-
Turnbull
Yeah, we
faces
can
pressure
talk
from
about
the
that.
opposition.
Because,
We've got no one else to have with
Because
us.
Hepburn Winds have a partnership with Power Shop. Power Shop buys all of Hepburn Winds energy and then retails it.
Okay,
New South
right,
Wales Central
yeah.
Coast.
So that's
23-year-old man
that's the
was
most
arrested
effective
yesterday
mechanism
afternoon with two
to
counts of goods
run
in
that
custody
to
suspected
run
of
that
being
system.
stolen.
Like just to have
That's
partner up to
yesterday.
the retailer to buy all your energy. And
We had some guy turn up
Okay,
from
right, yeah.
a dance company that's going to close off the main street of Trentham on the 28th to 29th of March to do this dancing. I didn't even know he was going to turn up. Anyway, we recorded it
Can
and
I
we
put
said
that
we
in
put it
there
up
or
on.
Yeah.
We said we put it up on SoundCloud, but I don't know how to do
My
that.
TV
You know how
is
to do
really
that?
strong
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So, have you got his name and
Yeah,
details and stuff?
Oh, you need yours
Oh.
to teach.
Claim was for more than $2 million.
Is that one yours?
I'll have to
Probably a bit
message
strong
Adrian and get
too.
his name.
In brewing.
Who
Yep.
organised it? Can
It
you
smells
know?
good
Must have
though.
been, but I didn't know anything about it. You sort of suddenly walked in the door and said, I need to talk about the.
For 12 months. Chris J. Adelaide.
Turning overseas in the Tunisian
Yeah, I mean, if it's a contact that comes through the website, I see it.
Yeah, well, I don't know how this happened. It just suddenly appeared out of nowhere.
An Islamist gunman opened fire at a hotel. Ollie Barrett reports from London.
I'll just message
Recorded
Adrian.
a verdict of unlawful killing of the 30 Britons who lost their lives in June 2015. He said the police response should have been more effective and rejected a finding of neglect against the hotel and tour firms whose customers were caught up in the attack. Families of victims told the inquests they should have had more information on safety from the UK government and tour operators, particularly after the March 2015 Bardo Museum attack in Tunis. Some relatives plan to take cover firm TUI to a civil court seeking compensation. Ollie Barrett, London.
Police say an American man arrested for shooting two Indians.
His name's Todd Dales.
Last week, later told
Todd
Obama he
Dales.
just killed Iranian people.
Can you see people watching,
Fled
listening
over
on?
state borders to Missouri
No.
after the
No, I see the
attack.
stats.
No.
Arrested for a staff member at a restaurant. Harry Gordon says
And can you
Trevor
check the
faces
stats, so
charges
how
of
many
first
people
degree
listening?
murder.
Yeah, I can't, but Ian can.
Ah.
Yeah, and so we only hear about that once every blue moon, so, but we can find out.
32-year-old Srinivas Kuchivolta died in the shooting.
Sorry, it has to be
Alok
locked in
Madasani
somewhere.
Yeah, it's locked into tuning, yeah, Todd Dales,
Witnesses
so,
said the
yeah.
suspect shouted, "Get out of my country."
And apparently there's people coming from all over Australia and some interstate people coming to do this dancing, so there's going to be all sorts of different dance stuff going on. And you can go and attend a dance competition where they'll teach you how to do that dance, or you can just walk around and enjoy it all. But they're closing off the whole of the main street.
Bank of
Wow.
Australia.
So Trentham's going to be closed down for a dance,
When's that happening?
28th of March.
Deliberately avoiding or delaying claims
Oh,
to
which is Tuesday,
This is Air News.
No, March.
March.
And that was Artie with the news. And now we've got Helen with the weather. Gotcha.
So